The merchant paced the length of his counting house, his boot heels clicking rhythmically against the stone floor. He shoved a heavy chest of gold coins aside, but the metal hit the ground with a hollow, unsatisfying thud that echoed in the cramped space. He stared at the piles of wealth, yet his eyes darted to the horizon, searching for more. His fingers, permanently stained with ink from endless ledgers, gripped the edge of his desk until his knuckles turned white. The shop outside was overflowing with goods, but it felt empty. A shadow stretched across the threshold, blocking the dim light. A man stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on a gnarled staff, his presence silent and unmoving. The merchant stopped pacing, his chest tightening. The stranger spoke, his voice raspy and low. "I know a place where your hunger for wealth ends." The merchant dropped his quill, the ink splattering across his ledger. He looked at the stranger, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Where? Show me." The old man raised a hand and pointed toward the dense, emerald forest at the edge of the valley. "A tree stands in the center. Touch its bark, and your hands will turn all they brush into solid gold." He sprinted toward the woods, ignoring the fading light. Thorns lashed at his skin, leaving thin red lines, but he did not slow down. He pushed through the dense brush, his breath coming in ragged gasps, until he reached the clearing. In the center stood the tree, pulsing with a strange, pale light that seemed to vibrate in the air. He did not hesitate. He slammed his palm against the rough bark. A jolt of electricity surged through his veins, snapping his head back. He pulled his hand away, staring at his palm, then turned and ran back toward the village. He burst into his home, his mind racing with visions of mountains of treasure. He grabbed the nearest wooden chair. As his fingers tightened, the wood groaned and hardened into gleaming, heavy gold. He reached for the oak table, and it followed suit. He touched the iron door handle, and it transformed into a solid, precious metal. He threw his head back and roared with laughter, dragging the heavy, golden chair to the center of the room. Everything he brushed became cold, heavy, and perfect. The laughter died in his throat as a sharp, hollow ache bloomed in his stomach. He had not eaten since the dawn. He turned toward the counter, his eyes landing on a loaf of bread left from the morning. He reached out, his fingers eager, but as his skin brushed the crust, the bread stiffened. The soft dough hardened instantly, the color draining into a dull metallic yellow. He pulled his hand back, staring at the solid, inedible brick that had been his meal. Panic flickered, a cold spark in his chest. He grabbed a cup of water, desperate to wash away the dryness in his throat, but the liquid did not spill. It froze in midair, turning into a jagged, heavy sculpture of gold that clattered against the table. He dropped the cup. It hit the floor with a deafening metallic ring. He tried to breathe, but the air felt thin. He reached for the edge of the counter to steady himself, and the wood beneath his palms turned to metal. He was surrounded by wealth, yet he was starving in a room that offered nothing but cold, unyielding ore. He backed away, his heart hammering against his ribs. A sudden sound cut through the suffocating silence. The door swung open. His daughter rushed into the room, her face bright with excitement, her arms outstretched to greet him. The merchant's breath hitched. He saw the danger before she did. He lunged forward, his hands reaching out to shove her back, to keep her safe from the curse that clung to his skin. "No, stop," he screamed, his voice cracking with raw terror. He was too fast, and she was too close. His palms slammed into her shoulders, intending to push her away. The contact was instantaneous. The warmth of her skin vanished, replaced by a cold, unyielding hardness. Her momentum stalled. The joy on her face locked into place, fading into a permanent, frozen mask. Her eyes, once vibrant, turned into dull, polished spheres. She stood before him, a lifeless, heavy statue of gold. The merchant pulled his hands back as if burned, stumbling away until he hit the wall. He stared at her, his chest heaving, his eyes wide and unblinking. There was no breath, no movement, no life. He reached out to touch her cheek, his fingers trembling, and felt only the smooth, biting chill of metal. The weight of his own greed had finally claimed the only thing he actually loved. He collapsed to his knees, his spirit shattering, and let out a long, hollow wail. The merchant clawed at the floor, his forehead pressed against the cold golden feet of his daughter. He sobbed, the sound raw and broken. "Take it back," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Take it all away." The wise old man stepped into the room, his expression grave. He raised his staff. A soft white light washed over the room, pulsing like a heartbeat. The golden surface of the statue softened. Color flooded back into her cheeks. She blinked, confused, and took a sudden, sharp breath. The merchant scrambled up, pulling her into a desperate, crushing embrace. He looked around. The table was wood again. The bread was soft. The house felt warm. He never touched a gold coin with the same obsession again. He spent his days in the quiet company of his family, finally understanding the weight of what he had almost lost.